Comenius, Plants, Trees, Part 2. Janua linguarum reserata, de arboribus et fructibus repetita, hologos peri tondendron cae carpon ep analeptes. That is, the chapter de arboribus et fructibus in the Janua resumed, beginning at sentence 110, plus orbis sensualium pictus, fructus arborum, hoi carpoi tondendron. Janua de arboribus et fructibus, peri tondendron cae carpon. Arboribus folia delabuntur et crescunt, praeterquam gumosis, quae semper vel perpetuo virent, ut buxus, taxus, etc. Ta dendra pulo re, e pulo bole, cae autis pulo pue, plenta comidode ha ae pulastin, hoion, puxos, smilax, also written as smilos, milax, milos, cae taloi pa. This sentence contrasts deciduous trees and evergreen trees. It might strike you as a bit odd, as it did me, that Comenius equates arbores gumosae with arbores sempervirentes. With arbores gumosae, Comenius is lumping together resinous and cone-bearing trees. Of course, the best way to appreciate Comenius's probable understanding of plants is to study the prominent botanists of his time. You can see, for example, that the Flemish botanist Rombert Dodoen, whose Kräuterbuch was issued in Latin in 1583, grouped together in his final chapter evergreen, arbores perpetua fronde virentes, conifer, arbores coniferae, and resinous, arbores resiniferae. Similarly, the Swiss botanist Gaspard Bohan's Pinax Theatri Botanici, published in 1623, groups conifers with the gummy and resinous plants, including specifically the taxus. However, maybe Comenius didn't read Bohan carefully, because note what Bohan actually says about the yew. Etiam si resinam non fundat, inter resiniferas tamen, propter similitudinem quam cum foliis habet, relatest. Notwithstanding that the taxus doesn't actually exude a resin, it has nevertheless been included by some in the resinous category because of a similarity in its leaves to those of some genuinely resinous trees. Pomum, malus, pyrrhus, cerasus, prunus, oliva, olea, arbores sunt sativae, fagus, alnus, fraxinus, ornus, silvestres, melea, apios, apios is the cultivated pear, he oncne or ocne, the wild pear, cerasos, cocumelea, elia e elaa, hemera dendra, oxua, clethra, melia cae melia tapinotera, agria. Note two patterns in the Latin names for fruit-bearing trees and their fruits. First, most of the trees are feminine nouns with masculine endings. Second, often the neuter variant of the tree name is the name for its fruit, as malus and malum. These patterns appear in the Greek, but less frequently. Illae, id est sativae, fructiferae, harum pleraeque steriles, ut betula, populus alba, populus nigra. Ecena carpopora, tautide hostopolu acarpa, hoion semuda, leuce, aigeros. And for you fans of the recondite, here's a few observations on the Greek names. Theophrastus's Latin translator Theodore of Gaza first associated the tree Theophrastus called semuda with the betula described by Pliny. This equation prevailed with botanists through Comenius's time, though today Liddell and Scott and Sir Arthur Hort, the Loeb editor of Theophrastus, identify Theophrastus's semuta as the Judas tree. There may not be a surviving ancient Greek word for the Betula alba. Second, don't confuse leuke, the word for the Populus alba, with leuke, the adjective for white. Though the tree gets the binomial name leuke in a late Byzantine compilation of writings on horse medicine. Now, Comenius classifies the Populus nigra as sterilis, akarpos. You will undoubtedly be very interested in knowing that two unknown authors from the pseudo-Aristotelian corpus disagree about this. The author of the work De Mundo, Pericosmu, who happened to be fond of quoting the Odyssey, praises the orderly arrangement of heaven and earth as administered by God. Plants and animals, for example, come into being and grow strong and perish in obedience to the laws of God. Of plants specifically, he writes, kai gar ampeloi, kai poinices, kai persei, sukai te glucerai kai elaiai, hospesin hopoietes, vines, palms, and persei, and, as the poet says, sweet figs and olives, ta de akarpa men, alas de par ecomena creas, and those plants that bear no fruit on the one hand, but serve other purposes, platanoi kai pitues kai puxoi, such as planes and pines and box trees, and for more examples he quotes the Odyssey again, kletre taigeros te kai eodes cuparisos, the alder, our black poplar, and the sweet-scented cypress tree. Haita carpon opores hedun alos de dus thesauriston perusai, and those which bring forth a sweet fall harvest that is difficult, however, to store. Onknai kai roiai kai meleai agla o carpoi, wild pears and pomegranates and apples with shining fruit. All of these, including our aigeros akarpos, ginetai kai akmazde kai theretai tois tu theu pethomena tes mois. They all come into being and grow strong and perish in obedience to the laws of God. However, check out the 69th anecdote in the De Mirabilibus Auscultationibus on marvelous things heard, peri taumasion accusmaton. In Cappadocia pesin hemionus enai gonimus, kai in Crete aigerus carpoporus. In Cappadocia they say that mules breed, and in Crete that poplars grow fruit. Can you believe that? Quaedam exuberante folios et frondosa luxuriae umbriferae sunt, virecta quibus in nascuntur opacantes, nominatem tilia, platanus, ulmus et ceterae latifoliae. Dendratina scian par ecusin, ta alse in hois puetae episceasdonta, hoia de pilura, platanos, telea kai taloi pa platupula. In this sentence, Comenius celebrates the umbriferae, virecta quibus in nascuntur opacantes, ta alse in hois puetae episceasdonta. Virecta, literally green places, such as the green meadows encountered by Aeneas and the Cumean Sibyl as they entered the region of the blessed in the underworld. His dem exactis perfecto muneret divae, having performed their duty, which was to present the golden bow to Proserpina, de venera locos laitos et amoena virecta fortunatorum nemorum sedesque beatas. They came upon the happy regions and pleasant green meadows and blessed seats in the groves of the righteous ones. The Greeks and the Romans had a lot of words for meadows, woods, glades, and groves, each with various shades, so to speak, of religious meaning. He hule, he lokme, he nape, to Napos in Homer, to Nemos, to Alsos, to Temenos, Silva, Lucus, Saltus, Nemus, etc. Salix dat vimena, quorum contextu corbes et crates fiunt, and it figures that the Roman military-industrial complex would come up with military uses for corbes et crates. Itea, lugus, e oisuas, hon plegmasi spirides e copinoi kai tarsoi erectaroi sum plecuntai par ecce. The Greeks also had occasional use for wickerwork shields. For example, the Athenian general Demosthenes, when defending Pylos in the Peloponnesian War, Demosthenes tas trieres pros estauresa, kai tus nautas ex auton hoplisen aspisi paulais kai oisuinais tais polais, ugar en hopla en corioi eremoi porisastai. Demosthenes enclosed the triremes in a stockade and armed their crews with shields, poor ones, most of which were made of plaited willow, for it wasn't possible to procure arms in an uninhabited country. Comenius teaches us that the salix dat vimena. It is the willow that gives us withs, and that is certainly true. Comenius may have been familiar with this passage in Cato the Elder's De Agricultura. Ad oleam cogendam quae opus erunt parentur, vimena matura salix per tempus legatur, uti sit unde corbulae fiunt et veteres sarciantur. For the olive harvest, let all necessary preparations be done. Let ripe withs and willow branches be gathered in a timely manner, so that new baskets can be made and old ones mended. However, wickerwork comes from other trees too. In fact, while our Greek translator has properly translated salix as itea, the Greek lugoi come from the tree they called helugos, among other names, which is the Roman vitex, Linnaeus's Vitex agnus castus, the chaste tree, but also called the withy. We manufacture Proto-Germanic wicker from the Proto-Germanic withs or withies of the Proto-Germanic withy as well as of the Proto-Germanic willow. But as far as Latin is concerned, vitex and wemen are part of the family of nouns cognate with the verb weeo, to weave, as is, for example, wheatus, the vine. And we'll exit this sentence on the willow with this stark photo of a pollarded willow with a crop of withs ready for harvest. Abaes proced est, ut et pinus, picaa, from pix, pitch, larix, cedrus, cupressus, elate, pelce cae pitus, cedros, cuparisos dendra elmeke. Some trees are tall, with some examples. We immediately appreciate that the examples are all conifers. Comenius uses single-word names for trees, pinus, picaa, etc. The species I have selected for illustration purposes for these generic names are those identified for these names by the plant indexes in the Loeb editions of Pliny and Theophrastus. Based on these indexes, the trees Pliny called abietes are pretty much the same as those Theophrastus called elatae, and likewise for the junipers and cypresses, where the Romans used the Greek names. The correspondence breaks down for the pines, firs, spruces, and larches that are comprehended under the names pinus, picaa, larix, Pelke and Pitus. Lily Beck, in her translation of Dioscorides, remarks, the identification of pines is hopelessly confusing. That's why I have bracketed these names. When you memorize this sentence, don't think of Pelke and Pitus as necessarily representing the same trees as Pinus and Picaa. And to my knowledge, there doesn't seem to be a known ancient Greek word for the larch. Linnaeus used the ancient Latin names for the conifers, all as species under his genus Pinus, and these names have passed straight down to us. Since Linnaeus, hundreds more species have been discovered around the world, and the progress first of botanical taxonomy and then of phylogenetic systematics has considerably shaken up the relationships, but the Latin names have survived intact. Palma, si curvatur, eo validius in sublime nititur. Poinix epicantes he auton es hypsos iscuroteron egerete kai anistesi. As the saying goes, it's better to bend than to break. Palm trees are in fact remarkably resistant to the wind throw in storms and hurricanes. The Greeks called the dates of the date palm fingers, dactyloi, hence Linnaeus's name Palma dactylifera. The Greeks also associated the palm with Leto's giving birth to Apollo under a palm tree on the island of Delos, as beautifully represented here on a red vase painting by the Comenius painter. Many Greek tour agencies will tell you that that palm is still at Delos today. And please proceed to the next video in the playlist for a continuation of Trees Part 1b.